everyone, 2024 is here and the Toasterers are here to show you how to build a gaming PC for just $500.
And we're gonna be doing it step by step. We're gonna show you each part of the process to build this awesome $500 gaming PC. But before we dive into that, let's hear a word from today's sponsor.
Are you looking to make the most out of your holiday bonus or gift money and save even more on this PC build guide? Well, today's sponsor, Jawa, has you covered. Jawa is an individually curated group of verified sellers that are selling components and even full builds at some of the best prices on the internet. Jawa is aiming to be the community where great gaming gear is sold at reasonable prices between gamers and not scalpers or scammers. Jawa.gg not only has a ton of sellers listing graphics cards at really affordable prices, but Jawa will also purchase GPUs directly from customers to make it the easiest possible solution for selling a GPU. This is perfect for all of you who just upgraded during the holidays and need to offload old hardware by selling to Jawa in a fast and convenient way. If you're interested in joining the best marketplace to buy or sell your gaming gear, check out Jawa.gg today, or you can head over to sell.jawa.gg/GPU to get started on selling your GPU today. Big thanks to Jawa for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get back to it.
So first up, we have the i3-12100F. When you're spending $500 in a gaming PC, even in 2024, you're not gonna end up with 14th gen out of the gate because, let's be honest, it's literally impossible. So 4-core, 8-thread, you do have the upgrade path, and that's what's important. You have a B660 motherboard, therefore you can go to 14th gen later on when you got the money. And this CPU comes with a stock cooler that has thermal paste pre-applied. And for the motherboard, we got an ASRock B660M Pro RS. This is a micro ATX board, which will fit inside of our micro ATX case nicely. These are some of the cheapest boards. Mini ATX cost a lot more, full ATX costs a lot more, so micro ATX is kind of the sweet spot. And it's also nice because you still get things like 4 RAM slots, 2 4-pins for the CPU, extra PCIe lanes for expansion cards and whatnot, so it's just a really upgradable board. And for the RAM, we got some OLOY RAM. This is a 16 gig kit. It's 2x8, so it's gonna run in dual channel, 3200 megahertz. It is just black RAM, so you don't have to worry about configuring any RGB software or anything, which makes this nice and simple. And for the SSD, because we can use Gen 4, we said we're gonna use Gen 4. This is a Solidigm 512 gig NVMe M.2 SSD. It's the P41 Plus, and it'll run in Gen 4, meaning you're gonna get some really fast read and write speeds.
Now for the GPU, we're actually using an Intel card. This is the Intel ARC A580, and the reason we chose this card is because for 2024, this card has become cheaper and cheaper. A competitor from AMD, the RX 6600, is averaging around $209. But if you want to spend a little bit more, you can go with the RX 6600 from AMD, but that would exceed our $500 budget. But this card right here competes very well with it with 8 gigs of VRAM, and it should be great for 1080p high refresh rate gaming. Now for the power supply, good old reliable, the Zalman Gigamax. This time we went with the 500 watt version to save a few bucks. 500 watts, more than enough for this PC build. You can opt for a 600 watt as well if you plan on upgrading your GPU in the near future, but honestly, for this build at this price point, this is a really good option. And of course, for the case, we had to go with our good friends at Sama with this ARGB case, the Q5. We have 3 ARGB fans pre-installed, mesh ventilation, tempered glass side panel, and a micro ATX form factor, which is gonna be perfect for that motherboard. And all in all, for $500, this build is gonna be really awesome for pretty much any game you throw at it at good settings. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is show you guys how to set up the motherboard, install the CPU, RAM, and everything, and get that motherboard ready to put installed into the case. We'll put the power supply in, we're gonna get everything going, and then we're gonna benchmark this thing and show you guys what it's capable of in 2024. Let's get right to it.
All right, guys, you ready to follow along? The first step is simply unboxing your motherboard. So to go over the contents of the motherboard, we have an I/O shield. We don't want to forget to install that, but we'll show you how in just a minute. We have some M.2 screws. That is going to be for your NVMe SSD. This is a M.2 riser, which is just basically an add-on accessory. We don't even need these. This is instructions, and that's kind of what we're here for. And then this is a SATA cable, which we also will not need. This is just for extra storage, essentially. But I always like to start the build off by doing the most important step, installing the CPU. So what we're gonna be doing is installing this i3-12100, and we're gonna start off by taking this bracket here and then opening it. And then this one is it's a little manual open kind of deal here. We're gonna take our CPU out of the clamshell. And the nice part about Intel, there's no pins to bend. So you don't really have to worry about being super delicate with these, but you do gotta be really safe with that motherboard. You're gonna be lining up, if you notice these little notches here, here, and here, there's 4 notches total. And there's also an arrow actually on the little plastic cover. You're gonna basically take your CPU and just kind of drop it in, lining up that arrow. All the notches should line up really nicely, and it should just fall into place. If it doesn't fall into place, say you got it slightly off, I don't like to push down. I like to kind of almost nudge from the side. That's how you prevent yourself from bending pins. And then you're gonna take this, you're gonna have to push down a little bit. Sometimes the cover pops off, sometimes it doesn't. And just like that, you're good to go on the CPU. So that was not too bad at all. We're gonna be using a stock cooler. So if you get an aftermarket cooler, there's gonna be some screws typically involved, but these Intel stock coolers, nice and simple. They don't have any screws, but sometimes they can be a little bit finicky. So one of the things I like to do is I like to have the cable towards the bottom. And the reason being is you can just have a cleaner build this way, because we're gonna hide this cable in a minute, but just make sure that it's not pinched. You can see I can move the cable nice and well. Make sure all of these are turned to the right. So make sure that they're turned clockwise, otherwise they're not gonna lock in position. And then what I like to do, and I'll show you guys from the back here in a second, is use both thumbs. You're gonna push really hard, by the way. Like, this is no joke when I say really hard. Make sure that cable can still move. And so what it'll look like from the back is these are locked, these are not locked. You notice how they're still close together, and you can even see me moving them. That means we're unsafe. We're not ready to go. So now, you ready? I'm gonna go ahead and push them. Yeah, the board will bend. It will definitely bend because you really got to push those things in, but it's no big deal. So we're going to take the CPU cable and we're going to plug it into CPU fan 1. And the reason you want to do this is going to actually control the CPU fan speed based on the temperature of the CPU. If you plug it into the wrong header, it's not really going to hurt anything, but you are going to get an error every time you start your PC saying that there's no CPU fan detected. Next up, Jonah's favorite step, the RAM. He just loves the way that it clicks in. I always have to keep him from chewing on it though. Yep.
It's yummy!
16 gigs dual channel. We do have 4 RAM slots, so a lot of you may be wondering, well, which RAM slots do I install it into? We're going to be using slots 1 and 3. So basically you're going to skip a slot, and the reason you do that is that's how you allow the RAM to run in dual channel. If you put them side by side, it typically won't run in dual channel. Once again, there's a notch. So you really can't do this wrong unless you just buy the wrong DDR or you buy the wrong motherboard. But DDR4 inside of a DDR4 motherboard, I'm gonna kind of push this end in first, and then I'm gonna follow up with the other end. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this other one here so Jonah can get another angle. So what you want is for this bracket to close itself. So if I have to push it, it's probably not seated. So go ahead and watch this. And the RAM honestly takes a lot of force. Like, don't be scared to press down on it. Just make sure you're pressing straight down, because if you are shaking, you go at an angle, you could fold your RAM lane over, and we don't want that, guys. We don't want to see that in our comment section. But this is our Solidigm P41 Plus Gen 4 SSD. We often get asked, which slot do you put your NVMe in? Well, when you have a Gen 4 drive, you always want to put it in the uppermost slot, especially if your motherboard has Gen 4 built into it, which any 12th gen motherboard and up, and any Ryzen, usually 5000 series, even 3000 series, most of them are going to have Gen 4 capabilities as well as the motherboards. You are going to need a PH1 Phillips. So that is going to be smaller than your traditional PH2 that you usually have lying around the house. If you use a PH2, it literally will not fit. And this right here is basically an M.2 cover. It's a heat sink. It's actually gonna have a little thermal pad on the backside that's reusable. And that'll basically just help your Gen 4 drive, because those things do get really hot running at those fast speeds. It'll help it stay cool. So we're gonna go ahead and peel off the thermal adhesive, and yeah, it's just like a little sticky pad that's reusable. And sometimes you do have to screw these in. Other times, they're actually held in by the board. So you notice how I put it in at an angle that is normal, and then you're basically gonna push down. And then you want to make sure you put this on the same way. So I usually like to kind of line up the backside first. That was a little bit finicky there, but we got it. Basically, you just really want to make sure that your M.2 is still straight inside of there, because you know you could screw it in and it could come out in theory. But I'm gonna go ahead and put the screw in. I'm gonna start it. So we're not gonna screw it down all the way, because we want to make sure we kind of put some equal pressure over this thing. All right, now we'll go back to this one. Go ahead and put it on all the way, and that feels pretty good. So at this point, you have a completed motherboard. We have our i3 underneath our stock Intel cooler. We have our 2 sticks of RAM in the first slot and the third slot. And then we have our NVMe Gen 4 SSD in the bottom slot here with the M.2 cover over it. And now it is time to go into the case.
All right, guys, now that Jackson put the motherboard together, we're gonna show you guys how to install said power supply. So we're gonna go ahead and open this thing up, and I don't have a box cutter, I need a box cutter. But yes, this 500 watt power supply from Zalman, solid power supply, but one thing you gotta keep in mind is this is a non-modular power supply, meaning it comes with all the cables you need and some that you don't, which we'll show you guys how to deal with that during the cable management portion, but it does make it a lot easier for first-time builders, so you don't have to plug in a bunch of cables and know which ones you actually need ahead of time. This one has everything already installed on it. So we're gonna go ahead and open up the power supply, and boom. Also get in the box a power cord, very important to keep the power of the PC. So we'll go ahead and put that in our case box. Boom, there it goes. And this right here is a bag of zip ties and screws we'll use to screw in the power supply. So we'll move all this stuff out of the way, leave our power supply and the screws we need off to the side, and we're gonna go ahead and prep the case. Now, we have the case out of the box. We took off the tempered glass side panel on this side by removing these screws right here and sliding off the side panel. We're gonna do the same with the back here. Now, sometimes, well, this one is actually pretty good. Sometimes these thumb screws are on really tight from the factory and you may need to use your Phillips head screwdriver to unscrew them, but this one seems good enough to where we can. JK, I just took it all back. One was good and the other one wasn't. So we'll go ahead and just get that a little bit loose and we are ready to go. So we're gonna take this side panel off, put it in our case box. Honestly, just put it somewhere we don't lose it, and put these screws back in. This is the #1 tip we have learned over the years. These screws tend to get lost in the PC building process, so just screw them right back in here so you don't lose them. Now, power supply is going to be installed right here in the power supply basement. We got to clear some stuff out of the way though. These are all the cables you will be using to plug in the motherboard and stuff, but we'll get to that later. It looks like it's being held on by a little twist tie right here. So we're going to have to undo this little twist tie, and boom, move all the cables out of the way. This right here is also an accessories kit, which I like this case because it comes with all the screws organized. It's very nice. You'll have the motherboard screws and other screws you may need, extra power supply screws and stuff, but we'll put this off to the side when we install the motherboard. And we're gonna go ahead and move these off to the side and install our power supply. Now we're gonna take our power supply, again, another twist tie. There's so many of these in the PC building space, especially with budget hardware. Use a lot of these twist ties. We need to install the power supply with the fan facing down because it pulls in air from the bottom of the case. And that's why people tell you not to put your PC case on carpet, because that's how it gets its airflow. So don't put this PC on carpet. So we're gonna go ahead and take this power supply, and we're gonna go ahead and slide it in here, and then Jonah will get the other angle right here. We're going to line it up with the back to where the 4 screw holes line up. I'm not entirely sure if they are lined up.
To the right a little more. There you go.
There it is. So you see where those are gonna go. I'm probably gonna let go a second, it may move, but that's where we're going to line up the power supply to then screw in said power supply with the screws in the bag that came with the power supply. So we'll go ahead and get those screws out, and Jen will take a look at those. Those are coarse threaded power supply screws. They're power supply screws. You gotta use them for the power supply, and you have 4 of them to screw in the power supply. So I'm gonna go over to this side real quick, stick it on top right here, and we're gonna go ahead and screw in the power supply. We'll do this corner, and bottom left. Now we have the power supply installed, we need to get the motherboard ready to go inside the case. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is take this right here, the I/O shield, and Jackson probably showed you that when unboxing the motherboard. This is the I/O shield that will go right here. It's basically a cover for the I/O on the motherboard. Here is the motherboard, for example, and as you can see, the I/O shield would go over like so. It lines up with all the ports and just protects the motherboard and the inside of the case from anything that may get inside it, and it looks a lot better. Don't forget this, you will be flamed for forgetting this. So we're gonna take the I/O shield, and it is a little bit difficult. We're gonna go ahead and make sure it's going in the right way. You wanna make sure that the audio ports are on the bottom. That's the best way for this build to remember. These are where the audio port's gonna line up, make sure it's on the bottom. And we're gonna go ahead and put our I/O shield in like so. You might have to move this fan cable out of the way, but you're gonna line it up and push in all 4 corners until you hear it click into place. And sometimes it can be difficult. Even for experienced PC builders, this can be kind of frustrating because sometimes the tooling isn't perfect. Just like that, see, it just came out. Got that there. Yep, that I/O shield is nice and installed. Boom, you see it protrudes out here a little bit. These little pins will hold it into place. And now that we have the I/O shield installed, we gotta install our motherboard. We're getting close, guys. We're getting very close here. So we're gonna go ahead and take the PC case, lay it down flat. I'm gonna lower the table for Jonah a bit.
Thanks.
Just making his job easier, you know? Anywho, so we have our case ready to go. Now, one thing that we've been having a lot of issues with recently, and it just depends on the case, is extra standoffs. This is a pro tip for you guys. These right here are what we call standoffs. They are little metal pieces, is the best way to describe it, where the screws will screw into the hole in the motherboard. Now we gotta make sure there's not any extra ones touching the back of this motherboard when we place the motherboard in. And on initial inspection, you shouldn't have to worry with this case. There are some cases you have to worry with it, but if you're watching this build guide, we made it easy for you guys. You don't have to worry about it. So we're gonna go ahead and pick up our motherboard by the CPU cooler. As long as the CPU cooler is installed properly, this is the best way to move the motherboard. We're gonna pick it up, and we're gonna go ahead and drop in our motherboard. Now we wanna make sure to line up the I/O. Again, this fan cable can get in the way sometimes, make sure it does not get pinched. Now that the I/O is lined up, we're gonna triple check that there isn't anything covered here. And it looks like everything is good. This display port is actually covered by this little like piece right here. So if you are gonna be using an iGPU at any point, like the graphics on the CPU, you're gonna wanna bend that up and out of the way. And look at that, I just popped out the I/O shield. Don't you love the I/O shield? It's the best thing ever. We're gonna push that back in. And we're gonna go back and make sure we don't have any issues there. We at least want to give whoever ends up getting this PC at PCBros.tech or PC Selling Business a chance to use the iGPU if they want to. Buy a PC today at PC Bros if you don't feel like building one. All right, now that we have the motherboard lined up properly, we're gonna go ahead and screw in the motherboard. And we're gonna go to our accessories kit, which again, I love this budget case. $49 and it comes with stuff like this. There's some cases for 70 bucks that just give you a bag and throw a bunch of screws in there and you get confused. But we're gonna go ahead and use these screws right here. These are the motherboard screws and they seem to give you more of those than the rest, which is very good. So we're gonna go ahead and take out a couple of those, but Joan's gonna take a quick look at those. Those are motherboard screws, and for quick comparison to the power supply screws we had before, that is the difference there. You can tell it is a fine threaded screw. The power supply screw is coarse thread. You don't want to use a coarse threaded screw in this case. There are some cases that do use it, but don't worry about it for this video. So we're gonna go ahead and take those screws and we're gonna screw in the motherboard. Here's where you're going to screw in the board. You have a screw point in the top left corner by the CPU power. You have one underneath this cable right here. You have one on the far right. We're gonna go straight down. You have one right here. We're gonna go to the left again, one in the middle, and then one on the far left. We're gonna go straight down. We got another one right there. And then we have this one right here on the right. We're gonna go ahead and screw all those in, and then the board will be nice and secure. Screw, screw, screw. Push that cable out of the way so that it can go right back into place after you screw it in. And last, but certainly not least, this screw right here. I like this case because it has all the standouts pre-installed. Some micro ATX cases don't come with the ones on the outside, which you don't necessarily need, but it just makes it that much better if you actually install those and screw the board in completely. Now, we have the motherboard installed. We got the power supply installed. Now we get to the part that you all might be a little bit scared of, plugging everything in, but this is gonna be very easy. We don't have a whole lot to plug in here. It's gotta plug in the CPU power, the 24 pin, the front panel connectors, the GPU, and guys, you'll be ready to play some games. So let's go ahead and get our second camera set up and start plugging stuff in.
All right, guys, it is time to plug in all of the cables, and do not be intimidated. Just follow along. We promise this will be nice and easy. First up is the most important power, the 24 pin or the 20 plus 4 pin. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this, and this is a really easy one just to feed through to Matt. We're probably just gonna use this large cutout here, just because some motherboards will have a cutout here, but we don't in this case.
So yeah, here is our 24 pin. There it is. And we're gonna plug her in right here. Be sure to have the clip line up right here. And boop, there we go, plugged in. And we're gonna give the rest of that cable back to Jackson.
Easy. Next up is the other primary power. This is what powers the CPU. This is the CPU 8 pin, and it also comes with an extra 4 pin if your motherboard actually has it, but I'm gonna go ahead and feed this 8 pin CPU power to Matt, and these ones are pretty hard to mix up.
So yeah, here comes our little 8 pin power connector, coming through this top corner right here, and we're gonna plug it in to this top left connector. Be sure to line up the clip, plug in the 8 pin, and hit your elbow. And there you go, it's plugged in.
We're not responsible for any injuries. So now the last thing that we really need to do with the power supply to power the main components is gonna be the PCIe. So this is typically gonna come in a 6+2 pin or just a straight up 8 pin. So we have 2 8 pins here. And I'm gonna actually go underneath the power supply basement and feed it through this little cutout here, because I think this card will be just big enough to kind of utilize that.
And here it is. We won't need it right now, but this is the 8 pin power, and you will need the extra connector, the other 8 pin, to power A580. It does pull a little bit of power compared to other cards on the market, but it will work out very well, and here's the 2 connectors we need.
So now moving on to the case components, I'm gonna go ahead and give Matt these guys right here. So this is going to be the power switch, the power LED, hard drive LED. Every case is different. Some have more of these, some have less, but this is probably one of the harder things to plug in, but as long as you follow along, it won't be too bad.
So yeah, as you can see, the front panel is coming through this little cutout right here. And the front panel is a little bit complicated, but we'll have a diagram on screen here so you can see how we're gonna plug things in. But we're gonna plug it in right here in the bottom right corner. First up, we're gonna do the hard drive LED, which we're gonna plug into the bottom left 2 pins. Then we're going to take our power LED, which you might just separate these a little bit. We're gonna take our 2 power LEDs, positive and negative, and we're gonna plug it in above the hard drive LED. Positive on the left, negative on the right.
Positive on the left.
Boom. And now we don't have a reset switch and we only have a power switch. So we're gonna take that power switch and right next to the power LED negative, the 2 pins, we're gonna go ahead and plug in the power switch. And then from there, we're gonna go ahead and tuck these cables back in because we have plugged in the front panel and it is good to go.
All right, so yeah, that was one of the harder steps. So I think now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna go ahead and do the USB 2 since that's right next to the front panel typically. So that one's gonna be missing a connector on like the far right or left, depending on how you look at it. And it's also labeled USB in this case, so it's nice and easy to not mix up with the HD audio.
So there it is, all USB 2. We're gonna plug it into one of these headers with this plastic housing around it. You always wanna check in, make sure you find the missing pin on this header. So you wanna make sure to find the missing pin on this header. As you can see right there, there's a missing pin. And then we're gonna go ahead and plug it up. I choose this one. Boom. Plugged in, good to go, USB 2, bang.
So next up, we got the USB 3. This is a hard to miss connector because it is just massive. It's typically gonna be blue like this. And this one I'm gonna go ahead and feed through to Matt kind of near the 24 pin, so this massive cutout here. All right, so let's go ahead and put that through right below the 24 pin.
And here's all USB 3. It's right below the 24 pin right here. So we're gonna take the connector, line up the notch with the notch on the connector.
Not to be mistaken with the Minecraft creator.
And push it in. Boom, USB 3.
All right, and now that last connector, HD audio, which is typically always going to be above the power supply basement, and that one's gonna be missing a pin closer to like the middle of the pin layout, and it's also labeled HD audio conveniently. All right, so HD audio, we're gonna kind of have to finesse right above the power supply here.
I'm gonna have to come in and help. There we go.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah, there's good old HD audio. As you can see, it says HD audio. Jackson already showed you that. But we're gonna go ahead and plug it in right here into the bottom left. And again, be sure to line up the missing pin with the missing pin on the header. Line her up, push her in, and boom, it's clear like HD audio.
So this is pretty nice because we're at the point now where the build in theory could go ahead and turn on, but I do wanna do one last step, and that is taking one of our SATA connectors on the power supply, which is gonna look like this. You do get Molex as well, but we're not gonna need any of those. So all these extra connectors are just extra, hence why modular power supplies exist. So it's gonna be a little bit hard to see because I'm gonna clear some cables off for you guys, but basically, we're gonna take this connector, it can only go on one way, and just plug it in to that little hub. So that's pretty easy. So now, I'm gonna shove all these extra cables kind of into the hard drive cage because we don't really need to use that area since we don't have a hard drive or anything. And then at this point, now that Matt already has that PCIe power, which that's the reason why I like to do that first, is now it would be really hard to get to. He's already ready to go and it'll be really easy for me to cable manage right when he's done with that.
All right guys, here's the GPU, the A580, looking nice and beautiful. So we're gonna go ahead and line this back up real quick. And we're gonna go ahead and install the graphics card. First, what you gotta do though, is open up the slot to install the graphics card. Take your screwdriver, and we're gonna unscrew this little cover right here. Boop, boop, boop. You don't need to unscrew it all the way, just enough so you can slide this cover back. And we're gonna go ahead and unscrew the one screw included for the top PCI cover. Put that screw to the side, because you will use it here in a second. It makes a lot of noise when it drops. And then I'm gonna go ahead and verify real quick, but I'm going to make sure it is the top two, yes. So we do need to take that top one out, and then this right here is a break-off connector, which in budget cases is pretty common. You're gonna push in the break-off cover inside the case, do a little wiggle wiggle, and from there, it'll just break off like so. Get rid of it, you don't need it. Now you're gonna take your graphics card, and you're gonna be sure to slot it inside the case like so. And then we're going to push until you hear a click. The latch is latching down and your graphics card is in place. Now we're gonna take that course-threaded power supply screw that was in that top cover, and we'll go ahead and screw in the top screw spot. Sometimes you might have to move the graphics card a little bit to make sure it lines up right. We're gonna go ahead and get that one screw in. Then we're gonna go back to our accessories box, which is the box, again, that came with the case. And there are more coarse thread power supply screws in there. Take one of those, put on your screwdriver, and screw in the bottom.
There's enough screws to give to your friends.
You can give screws to your friends. Screw your friends, right? All right, guys, so we're gonna take this cover, we're gonna push it back, and then we're gonna tighten it back down. You can use your finger if you want, but just to be extra safe so it doesn't just slide around. Do a little twist there. Now your cover is nice and secure. Now we gotta power the GPU. We have these power connectors right here, the two PCI power connectors, these two 8 pins. They're going to go right here. So we're gonna take the first one. Doesn't matter which order you do. Make sure it clicks, and take the other one. And we're gonna also plug it in. and make sure, it kind of clicks. This one doesn't really click very well. But both of those are in, and then we can just conveniently push this cable back through. And while Jackson's doing cable management, we're gonna do one thing here is we're gonna zip tie this cable just to make it look a little nicer. You don't really have to, but that's definitely something I would recommend doing to clean this up a little bit.
All right, guys, it's time. It's everybody's favorite, most scariest time. Cable management. Have a lot of zip ties handy. Don't be scared to use too many. I like to go, kind of like medium on the cable management, because if you go too much, if you have to do any troubleshooting or upgrades later on, you're gonna be kind of annoyed at yourself. What I did was I cable managed. I made it nice and clean. I like to basically not have like multiple runs if I can. I like to kind of have everything to come together. I just think it's generally cleaner. And if you notice, I left the bottom pretty uncable managed because I just find it easier if you ever need to upgrade or troubleshoot, having the basement kind of uncable managed. So I want to make sure. I did make the mistake, which I don't do very often, but I did accidentally kind of snip at a cable a little bit, so I want to make sure all my fans actually work here. Normally we do like a really big grand reveal, but this might just be a grand reveal into I got to solder. Now how long will that last? Maybe a week, maybe a day, maybe forever. No, I'm just kidding. Now I'm pretty confident I didn't actually cut through it, but that just goes to show you should be really careful when you're using the snips or scissors or whatever. But yeah, this build turned out really clean, and I'm definitely liking how easy it was to build. So at this point, we just got to see, will it game well? All right, guys, we are playing the finals, and I'm going to show you guys the settings here real quick. We're actually using a little bit of Intel's upscaling. So we're 920 by 1080p. We have Intel XeSS at balance, so we're going to get some good looks while getting decent FPS, and then basically like high settings, which you could definitely lower to get a much higher FPS if you wanted to.
It did show that ray tracing was on.
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
Oh, okay, we'll need to turn that off.
Okay.
The FPS, okay, so now we're on static, and it seems like they got us a little more FPS, but
the game looks weird.
Not a ton. It does look weird now.
It looks very weird. It could just be Intel's upscaling is not as great.
Maybe. Yeah, no, it definitely does. I feel like medium settings. This is just too much.
Put that on low.
Yeah.
If it doesn't break the game. There we go.
Open up the cache! Wait, what? Oh, he just got rezzed. I was like, why did homie look like he was invisible? What are you doing over here? If I cap this, we definitely get the point.
Oh,
there's literally a guy inside.
You got it, yeah!
Dude, that was him too. That's their team, but we got it. He's got a hammer. Oh!
Oh, he was like a tickle.
He has 1 HP. Now I'm gonna die.
Your teammates are like, stay alive.
Because I think whoever's down here is gonna need it. Oh. I just knocked him to the floor. I knocked him in the floor into my death. Oh, dude, that's a good little molly right there. Get away from me. Please. Oh my god. Dude, this is unreal. This is actually unreal.
What is happening?
Oh, my mind has to go off here. No, it didn't go off. Oh.
Oh, there goes. Oh, yeah. That's the.
Oh, I kind of should have let them maybe get that. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. If you let them.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, they're like, dude.
I didn't see like the amount of time that was left, but hey, I mean the PC did pretty good in this game.
Yeah, not bad. Definitely a CPU-bound game, but we're gonna try some Fortnite, which is also gonna be CPU-bound, but maybe run a bit better. We'll see. All right, guys, we are in Fortnite, otherwise known as Fortnite. We have the frame rate limit at 120, performance settings far be distance, low textures across the board, and we are getting well, we'll know the FPS a little bit more once we land here, but. So far, not bad. Kind of targeting, the 90 to 100 FPS range. Fortnite is hit or miss, though. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's downright ugly. But we'll see once we land here on performance settings what we end up getting. Let's go get a medallion at least. If no one's going to be here, might as well pick up a medallion. And some meds. We're sitting good. Whoa. These guys are built different. Oh my god, they're just jumping at me.
Ninjas.
Ah!
Legion Heavy Grunt.
Oh, that turret! What the heck? That thing messed me up.
Bing, 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 chilling. Ooh. Oh, that was the gamer, all right.
After fighting AI, I get the medallion, I get shot. Oh!
Dang.
Ah!
It's a freaking machine gun.
Yeah. Ah! Oh God! Oh God! I tried.
She can't aim. She could.
She can aim apparently, but hey, Fortnite. Pretty good, 100 plus FPS experience performance settings on a $500 PC, that's pretty good. But we have to compare it to our other computers. 3D Mark, Time Spy, we'll get a score and then talk about this PC as a whole.
Alright guys, we just got done benchmarking our $500 2024 gaming PC, and it's overall a really good build with a really good upgrade path, playing games like the finals, which is considered to be a pretty high-end esports game. Medium settings, high settings, it seemed to do pretty well.
And in terms of Fortnite on performance settings, we had no problem getting 100 plus FPS. Obviously, you'll be held back a little bit with the i3, but the best part about this system is it is very upgradable. You can upgrade the CPU pretty easily, and that GPU, which did perform very well in our 3D Mark Time Spy test, which ended up getting a score of 9,482, which is a very impressive score. It's actually 5 cents per point, and it competes very well with that RTX 4060 laptop that we reviewed recently for $900, only coming about 600 points less. So overall, this is a really good value build. Do keep in mind, Intel Arc GPUs tend to perform better in 3D Mark versus other GPUs because they do tailored for that, but still, really good score, and the price performance is actually very solid across all the games we tested. So if you want to build this PC yourself, check those links in the description down below. They will be affiliate links, they will help us out. Let us know what you think of this PC down below, and if you end up building this at the beginning of 2024 or the end of 2024, let us know in the comment section down below.
And as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, check out our other two YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/toastybros, and do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.
If you don't want to build a gaming PC, this one right here will be for sale at pcbros.tech. The cameraman is acting something different right now, something foolish.
Something about 2024 has got this man going crazy. And if you use code TOASTYBROS2 on checkout, you save 2% of your next purchase. Buy a PC today if you don't feel like building one. See you guys later. Goodbye.
Peace out.